Selfless stranger on the plane. We have to do what we can to help wherever and whenever it is possible for us to help. Jackie Chan. The pilot's voice came over the loudspeaker, urging the passengers to take their seats. Aggravated travelers shuffled down the cramped aisles, shoving large carry-on bags into stuffed overhead compartments. A mechanical issue had caused a 40-minute delay, and people openly complain about tight connections. I pushed my backpack under the seat in front of me and fastened my seatbelt. The new book I brought for the trip resting in my lap. It was then that I saw her. She wore a long silk tunic and matching pants with intricate gold stitching along her neckline and wrist. A beautiful head scarf dropped over her dark hair, framing her delicate face. With an infant in one arm, she pulled a rolling bag behind her while urging the small child in front of her to move forward. Though her words were spoken in a language I did not know, the gentle tones were those of a mother. The child moved slowly, stopping occasionally to pick up something interesting from the floor. The mother continued her soft coaching despite the irritated sight of the travelers. Behind her, finally, they reached their seats just a few rows ahead of me, but the mother's challenge had just begun. Her toddler shrieked as they tried to buckle her seatbelt. Those shrieked woke the baby, who began to cry. The procession of passengers abruptly stopped. The mother and her carry-on bag blocking the aisles. Tension filled the cabin as exasperated sign and muttered comments chilled the air. A flight attendant appeared, cramming the woman's bag into a overhead and asking that she please take her seat. The baby wailed, and I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, remembering a similar experience of my own many years before. Our twins were just a year old when my husband and I took them on a 3-4-hour flight to Florida. Struggling in the airport with a double stroller, 2 car seat, and an overflowing diaper bag, I was exhausted before the flight began. When we finally boarded the plane, a babe in my husband's arms and one in my own, I could not help but notice the familiar expression on the faces of our fellow travelers. Their eyes begged, "Please don't sit here." As we proceeded down the aisles, I knew the look. I had been quietly of it myself. Once we were settled, my husband and I took turns passing toys and snacks between us. For the first hour, both babies were content in our laps, but as the second hour began, the daughter in my arms began fussy. All efforts to entertain her failed, and my anxiety escalated with her cries. My husband sat helpless across the aisles, our other daughter asleep in his arms. There was no reprieve or tag teaming lest we rest. Awaking the second baby, it was up to me to subside the volcano rupturing in my arms. Soon she was inconsolable. I rocked her and bounced her, speaking quietly into her ear as she screamed and pulled against me. My seatmate shifted toward the window, raising his book higher as if to create a sound barrier. There was nothing I could do. I was trapped, locked inside a steel vessel with no escape. Suddenly, a woman 2 seats ahead of my husband unbuckled her seat belt and approached us. Crouching, she gave me a smile, extending her arms. "May I?" Embarrassed, I felt compiled to decline. Compiled or compelled? Compiled to decline, forcing a smile. I thanked her, offering false assurances that my daughter would soon be okay. She smiled again. "Really, I don't mind. I work in our church nursery and I love holding babies." When her arms reached for my baby, I did not protest. Tears of relief filled my eyes as she pulled my daughter to her chest, swaying her back and forth with hushing sounds. "I am a mother myself," she said. "I know how hard it can be. Get some rest. She will be fine." I could barely speaking as my gratitude for this selfless stranger rendered me silent. Thought the memory had aged with my twins, the impression it left behind had not. I believe it is not until we witness an act of unrequired kindness or become the recipient of one that we become more aware of opportunities to reciprocate. An opportunity was before me now with the young mother and her two children. I had a decision to make. I felt a stirring in my chest, an unsettling impulse to act while my brain played the role of devil's advocate. The easy route would be to not get involved, to ignore what was happening and mind my own business. What if she refused? What if I offended her? The toddler screamed again and the infant wailed. The man in front of me shook the pages of his opened newspaper, while the stranger beside me put on headphones. I took a deep breath and unbuckled my seatbelt. My heart began beating faster. My mouth went dry as I approached her seat. I knelt beside her and our eyes met, where lines pitched her face and fear hid behind her eyes. I offered a smile, the same one I had received many years ago. "May I?" I asked, my arms reaching up. Her eyebrows shifted, confusion itched on her face. My pressure caught the attention of her little girl. The toddler stuck a chubby finger into her wet mouth, looking up at me with tear-stained cheeks. Her big brown eyes were framed with the longest eyelashes I had ever seen. The mother bounced the wailing infant, her arms patting the back of the blanket paddle while I waved at the little girl, then covered my eyes before quickly removing them with an expression of surprise. A wide gummy smile revealed tiny buds of new teeth. "May I?" I asked again, gesturing to the toddler's seat. The mother said nothing but stood to let me in. My pulse raced as I reached for the little girl, half expecting her to screech at the stranger joining them. I looked different than her mother with my blonde hair and pale skin, but she climbed into my outstretched arms anyway. I pulled her onto my lap, relieved that she accepted me so readily. For the remainder of the flight, we entertained ourselves with games of peekaboo and its pitsy spider. But when the plane finally landed, something amazing happened. Nervy passengers suddenly sprang into action. Where the mother earlier need for assistance with overhead bag had been ignored, someone came forward and pulled it down for her. Another passenger asked if they could grab my bag. We exited the plane as a makeshift family, the toddler in my arms and the infant in hers, with complete strangers carrying our bags. It felt complete, as though something had been fulfilled, a collective response to a silent call, one that did not begin with me but with a stranger on a different plane several years ago. One who was willing to unbuckle her seatbelt and leave the confines of her comfort zone, approaching a weary mother with two simple words, "May I?" by Brenda Watterson.